When you watch pornography, what you're doing is pumping your brain full of dopamine and serotonin, which are neurochemicals that are associated with anticipation and pleasure. But the problem is, over time, your brain gets used to this hit of instant pleasure that is achieved from porn. And in some sense, it gets desensitized to getting pleasure from other healthy activities. Because most of the productive activities that you perform in your day-to-day life are not going to be nearly as stimulating as pornography. This desensitization leads a person to get easily bored when trying to do something productive. That person has no motivation to do anything even remotely challenging. Also, his attention span is now much shorter than it used to be. All of these things lead him to perform poorly at work, missing deadlines, showing up late to meetings, getting poor performance reviews, and much, much more. But the good news is, your brain has the ability to rewire itself. This ability is known as neuroplasticity. Just as how repeated exposure to high dopamine activities can rewire your brain and make it desensitized to less stimulating behavior, just like that, lack of exposure to high dopamine activities for a period of time can allow your brain to recalibrate and resensitize itself, such that activities that you once found too boring or too hard to do now seem to be enjoyable and not as hard to do. However, neuroplasticity does take a while to occur. It's not going to happen just because you have stopped watching pornography for a week. It could take your brain a couple of months to even years to fully recalibrate itself and heal from porn addiction. The duration of your recovery depends upon the volume of porn consumed and the duration of your porn addiction, in addition to other factors like the quality of your sleep and the nutrition composition of your diet. But here's another piece of good news. You don't actually have to wait that long for a full recovery. You can actually significantly accelerate the process of healing your brain by doing certain things that boost neuroplasticity. The first thing that you could do is intermittent fasting, basically going for a duration of time without eating any food. Studies have shown that fasting is strongly correlated to neuroplasticity. Intermittent fasting boosts BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's one of the most important proteins in your brain. It helps neurons, which are basically new brain cells, to grow, to survive, and form new connections with each other. Secondly, higher BDNF supports learning, memory, and overall cognitive performance. And it is key to facilitating neuroplasticity. Think of BDNF like the fertilizer for your brain. Secondly, fasting induces autophagy. It is a mechanism through which your body basically detoxifies itself by clearing out damaged cells, and this process happens in your brain too. It also enhances your cell's ability to tolerate stress. The truth is that I could go on and on about the benefits of intermittent fasting and how it increases your focus, how it improves your sleep, how it improves your circadian rhythm, how it helps you recalibrate your hormones, and much, much more. So now let's get into how you can implement intermittent fasting into your life to help you increase your neuroplasticity and accelerate the process of resensitizing your brain to pleasure. What I would recommend is that most people follow the 16-8 approach. It means that for 16 hours in a day, you are in a fasted state, not eating food. And for the rest 8 hours in a day, you have your eating window during which you're eating 2 to 3 meals. If you have never fasted before, then the 16-hour number could seem quite daunting. But if you consider the fact that you are probably going to be sleeping for 8 hours, and that is you being in a fasted state, now all you have to do is get an additional 8 more waking hours of fasting, and you're done with the 16 hours. So let me give you an example of how you can set up your meals. Let's say you have your last meal of the day before 8 p.m. You hit the bed at around 10 p.m. and then you wake up at 6 a.m. This means that you have already completed a 10-hour fast because you have slept for 8 hours and you had your dinner 2 hours before you fell asleep. Now all you need to do is push the first meal of your day by 6 hours, and this will allow you to complete your 16-hour fast and reap in all the benefits of fasting. So that would mean that you have your first meal of your day at 12 p.m. Now between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. lies your eating window. You can either schedule 2 meals between that time or 3 meals between them, whatever you prefer. The thing about doing the 16-8 format of fasting is that it is quite moderate in its intensity and it makes things quite sustainable in the long run. But that would also mean that you would have to very likely do multiple days of fasting to start seeing noticeable results in your mood, your energy levels, and your attention span. If you want to further maximize the benefits of fasting on your brain without necessarily increasing the duration of your fast, then I would recommend that you start following a ketogenic diet during your eating period. A ketogenic diet is basically when you have very little carbs in your diet, let's say less than 20 grams, and you instead have a lot of proteins and fats. What this does is it actually mimics fasting. Think about it. When you are fasting, your body begins to use its own fat as fuel, and this is known as ketosis. Funnily enough, when you don't eat carbs, your body does the same thing. It switches over to using its own fat as fuel, and this is why a ketogenic diet is very similar in its healing properties to fasting. Now, in this video, you have been introduced to the world of intermittent fasting and ketogenic diet, and how healing they are for your brain and body, especially when it comes to overcoming porn addiction and recalibrating your brain to pleasure. But the thing is that perhaps you require more convincing or more information on both these topics before you can start applying them to your life. Maybe you would like to understand more of the science behind it, or want to know whether it is safe for you, or know what kinds of foods you should be eating. I'm sure you have plenty of questions at this point. What I would recommend is that you check out these two channels and try to watch a couple of videos by them on intermittent fasting and ketogenic diet. They are both certified doctors and have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to successfully implementing a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. Here's a bit of a brutal truth. You can only successfully recalibrate your brain and resensitize to a healthy dose of pleasure if you stop relapsing. If you're relapsing to porn every week, then you are just perpetually stuck and unable to heal, and you're just going to face all these withdrawal symptoms for long durations of time. If you want to overcome this addiction, then remember, it's not just about having motivation or willpower and just resisting the urge to watch porn, because willpower is a limited resource and it is bound to run out, especially once the urges start hitting. What you require instead is a system that does not rely on motivation. This system at the bare minimum should have a dietary plan with components of fasting, and it should have a sleep optimization plan, and it should plan for obtaining dopamine from other healthy sources, and a bunch of other tiny things that holistically work towards improving your life. So if you would like to work with me in helping you set up such a reliable system in your life that will finally allow you to overcome this addiction, then make sure that you click on the link in the description and book a call with me.